been at the Bubble for 18 months, working with our LB Plus programme, which that's made up of 16 to 21-year-olds who are not employed or in educational training at the moment, and they come with us as part of the programme, devise a piece of forum, tour it to their peers in schools, youth clubs, other youth settings in the borough, and learn to be peer leaders themselves. And as part of the programme, they then go on to carry out a work placement with us, so each one of them gets matched to a different project that we're running. And then they might go shadow one of the practitioners in school on a speech bubble session, or in one of our resident groups in the evenings here with children or adults. And ultimately, when LB Chris's leave the programme, we consider them as freelance staff, so that then when other projects come in, commissions, we regard them as artists that we can employ to work on the projects. And we do that because they're the best people for the job, especially when it's working with teenagers or the young people. I didn't answer the question at all then, did I? Before that I was freelance, and I was working a lot in this area with young people in schools and out of schools, doing a lot of issue-based crime prevention.
And were you working in this kind of area of London before, or had you?
Yeah, a lot of work in Southwark, but all around as well. And with a mix of age groups, sometimes in primary schools, sometimes in secondary schools, and with other neat groups as well.
What was the question again? Your history of working with young people.
Oh, God. Well, working with young people, that really started here. I mean, this is ultimately my theatrical home. And I think my first history working with young people, maybe as a professional, that's an interesting one actually, because Heath, when I was about 17, he gave us an opportunity to apply for some money. That's the people you saw in this show, A Fair Cop, in 2001. And it wasn't that particular production, we got a chance to apply for some money. I think it was, I can't remember who it was, but we were able to kind of put forward a proposal for a cross-art form theatre project. And it was our first chance to sort of act as artists, sort of producers, sort of theatre makers, and actors all at the same time. And that was really exciting. And I think that was my first sort of opportunity to work with other young people, sort of as a professional and as a peer at the same time. After that, I went off and trained and came back, and ultimately my sort of biggest opportunity here was running the LB 360 project, which was the predecessor of the LB Plus programme, and it was a pilot to work with neat young people in Southwark who were 16 to 18 who hadn't been in education or training at the time. And we ultimately had to train them as theatre makers and get them ready for the area of work of the arts. So that's sort of my history working with young people. As well as on that project I ran a number of youth theatres for Bubble, also put together a youth art showcase that sort of showcased all of the work across South London really. Worked with the Latin American Youth Forum, with Theatre Peckham, and a number of other groups to kind of literally share our work and share our talent at that time. And it was actually really, really successful. And I also, with Adam, created the Summer University project, and that became an ongoing holiday programme that tied into fan-made theatre with Peck. And we looked at young people had to kind of come forward and offer submissions, literature submissions, and we shortlisted and created a number of performances based on these literature submissions. So that was kind of linking into the mainstream work at Bubble. So, yeah.
Great, a really kind of personal relationship with Bubble as well.
Yes.
Yeah, brilliant. And Jade?
Yes. Well, I first got introduced to Bubble when I was younger. I used to come to the classes when I was about 6. For a few months, and then obviously it's always been around the corner for me, so I lived just near the White Tunnel. And I was made aware by a friend of mine about the new LB Plus course, and when I came out of college,
I just finished my A-levels, I didn't know where I was going to go, I didn't really want to go straight into university, my gap year was set ahead, what are we going to do with it? So I got in contact with Marie, she told me about the details of it, so I came along. We got a sort of an overview of what the course was going to be, so we started working towards Gold Arts Award, just explained step by step what we was going to do, so we've been putting together a piece of foreign theatre, so that gave us the opportunity to produce, direct, star in it, and we toured that around in different schools. And whilst putting on the foreign theatre, we was also putting together workshops with younger people. So we went into St Michael's, we showed them our foreign piece, they enjoyed it, and then we got them involved afterwards. So we done, I think, 3 sessions with them. So the first sessions, we just sort of introducing foreign theatre to them, doing a bit of doing the workshops, so doing games, just explaining it overall, and then getting them involved. And by the end of it, they've all produced their own piece of foreign theatre in their own groups. That we done that in several schools, so we done that in St Michael's, we done that in Southwark College, we went to the Daniel Taylor Centre, the Bell Centre in Peckham, we went to, I can't remember what it's called, another centre in Peckham, but there was loads of different places that we went to, and that's my first involvement with working with younger people. As opposed to the fact, well, when we were doing foreign theatre, obviously I was working with them, but it was together with them. When it comes to going into the schools, I was the one sort of taking the reins and being the workshop leader, workshop assistant, so that was my first professional experience of doing that. And since then, I now work with Bubble, teaching the 6 to 8 classes, after I had placement with them for a few months as part of the LB Plus course. So after we finished the forum, the Gold Arts Award, they stuck us on a placement, and we were just shadowing the trainer, so I was shadowing Tamsin, who's over back, and she sort of showed me the ropes of what it was about to teach the 6 to 8, what the workshops involved, what sort of games you do, programmes for each month, each term, and after shadowing them for their whole term, her and John, the Pep got in touch with me and asked me if I'd like to do it as a permanent sort of placement, as a permanent job. And I've done that for the last 2 terms, this morning at 9:30, so we had the 6 to 8. So that's my now involvement with, it's not so much youth, they're, well, it is youth I suppose, but they're more younger generation. Yeah, exactly. So the first involvement has got to be down to coming to LB Plus and then going into the schools and starting the foreign theatre and the workshops that go with it.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of narrow it down a bit because I've been working with young people for a long time. Now, it should be my colleague Tony Gallacher here today because he worked for Bubble for quite a long time, I think, back in the 80s. And I said to him, what was it you were going to talk about? Because he said it was going to link with immediate theatre. And he said, well, you know, when I was at Bubble, it was the first time that somebody had said to me, right, here's a trainee. And it was a young person, much like yourself, who'd done a bit of theatre, was quite interested in it, and they said, right, they're going to shadow you and work with you for a year. And when Tony came to immediate, one of the things that he really liked was that he was told he was going to have a trainee working with him, who was a young man called Jerome, I think, at that point, who is now a permanent member of staff. So that with in my work at immediate theatre, I think I set up immediate theatre. I've worked all over the place doing lots of things, but I always felt as though my work was a bit hit and run. It's kind of short-term funding, and so I wanted to kind of make theatre where I lived, so that I could build a relationship with the community that I worked in, even if they were short-term projects. And working with that community and working immediate theatre delivers its work on estates. So we don't get young people to come to us. We work with what I call unsupported young people, so young people whose parents don't kind of go, oh, there's something going down the road. That we go and find them playing on the estates, and we create a drama session for them. And so I noticed I was working with some fantastic young people, but then I started creating jobs, but none of those young people were applying for the jobs. And I suddenly felt there was a real gap, and I know it's something that Bubble has done a lot about in the past, but it's something I feel very passionately about, is how do we create a ladder of opportunity for the young people that really enjoy participating into offering a real experience and an opportunity, an employment opportunity. And so that became absolutely core to what immediate theatre is all about. Is where some conversations happen between immediate and Bubble. So I'll start briefly. One of the most important things I say is when young people work for me as peer facilitators, I pay them. That's absolutely number one whenever I can, because a lot of the young people I work with cannot afford to volunteer. They're absolutely desperate for money. And you know, we've done quite a lot of talking about this, and we're lucky to have funding. And when the head of the youth vending teams talked to the young people who were there, they said, what was it that turned you to crime when you were 14? And you know, the simple thing that Daniel once said, I wanted to buy my mum a birthday present. And that is what got me into drug dealing. He needed a tenner. But once he'd done it, you know, that was something that was happening. And so, you know, employment is absolutely key to what I think about. So I'm just going to pick on... so I started actually from that point of going, why aren't they employed? But taking the kind of older young people and saying, giving them an evening, a couple of weekend training, and saying, right, within the group that you work in, you're now going to be an assistant. And we started doing that, actually, because I thought it would be good for them. It was much better for us than it was for them. So I did have to learn there. I mean, this thing would be great for us, because it would help us to cope with a lot of problematic young people. But I also thought, isn't that nice of me? How patronising. But you know what I mean, that was doing good. But it, you know, the impact that working with young people had on the work was huge. And so, you know, we've all, many of us in the audience have trained, we've gone, we've developed our professions, our careers. But these young people who can communicate so well with young people that we work with, they've got an enormous amount to offer. And I think that that's vital. So, you know, peer education is huge. And I just want to talk about a couple of the projects. I mean, one of the most important projects for us was called Meet the Parents, where we train teenage parents to then go back into schools using drama to look at sex and relationship education. And one of the big things there is, of course, it's very clear they've all had sex, because they've all got babies. Everybody worries that you're therefore promoting the fact that it's good to have you know, sex early and have babies. But actually they say, you know, look, I love my child more than anything else. I wouldn't be without my child. But had I known what I know now, and if I'd had better sex and relationship education, I wouldn't have this child. So I'm not promoting it, I want to do something about it, but don't expect me to say that I regret it, because I don't. I mean, this was something that struck me, was that from saying I was making work in the community, was that a phenomenal intelligence and responsibility being taken on by young parents, and yet the world was making it impossible for them to give back. That was something I felt very, very strongly about. Those young women have gone on, many of them work for me now on a regular basis on all sorts of projects. But also when I then had my first child at 40, they were very, very helpful. And some of the exercises that we used in the programme come out of them trying to tell me what it was going to be like. And then our regular workshops that are used, because I was like, oh my God, I can't go. So, you know, the real... Young people have a huge amount of information and knowledge, and I think that, you know, the power of theatre to use that is very important. I wanted to talk briefly about a project called Hoax. We were asked to create a piece of work about calls to 999 services a long time ago, and well, I thought, well, obviously, I mean, it's very like a police project. If you want to stop 11-year-olds, this was the key area, from doing this, what you have to do then is to go and talk, you know, you have to get 14-year-olds to talk to them, because they're the people who do 11-year-olds look up to 14-year-olds. And that was the first kind of thorough piece of peer-to-peer theatre that I made, where we took young people through a drama project, but in school, and then on their placement we took them out into schools. And that really started me thinking about thinking more about how we can use young people as educators and performers. It is something that I think we need to think about, particularly in the environment now, where it is so... I mean, how is a young person that I work with going to take the courage to say, I'm going to take 3 years with no finance coming in and train for a job, train to be an actor? Now, I mean, through the programmes that we run, about 3, 4, 5 young people have gone off to do community arts training. Some of them had they been from more affluent backgrounds, would be training to be actors, but they can't take that risk is too big. And I think we have to think very seriously about the future of our work if it's becoming more and more exclusively for young people from supported backgrounds. So yes, just to kind of round up really with the Tomorrow programme, where we have taken, they all have to have had some contact with the criminal justice system, so they're ex-young offenders. 1 year they said we didn't have to do that. We didn't have to have that. They didn't have to fit into that box. It didn't make any difference, the young people we worked with. So I don't really like that, but that is how we get the funding. We get the funding from Europe. We employ people on half-time wage. They do a similar kind of training, but they learn to be facilitators rather than, although some of them do a lot of performance. Now what I think is, that's a programme. We've got to think much more long-term about how we're creating opportunities for the next generation and taking responsibility for who we want the next generation to be.
Thanks very much for that overview of your work. Just picking up from what Jo said, and certainly something that everyone I think has touched on. How do you all see the arts, and particularly participatory arts, catering to that need now that seems to be developing with educational reorganisation that we're talking about, and the fact that fees are really, really expensive for training? How do you think the sector can do more to address that need? Maybe if we start, should we start with Marie?
Yeah, definitely. The young people that come on LB Plus, a lot of them would like to pursue actor training, and a lot of them can't consider it because of financial implications. And something that we're trying to do is develop relationships with drama schools, so that a few of them are now offering free auditions to people who are on LB Plus, which is a relatively small cost compared to the training. But if it means they can do an extra audition because they don't have to pay that £50, then it's really, really helpful to them. And if it means that allows or enables those young people to go to the drama school and spend a day there and experience the audition, then they might think they've got their idea about how serious they are about training. But also we've got young people who've been through LB Plus who have gone on to get agents and are working professionally and are doing really, really well. And they don't have the same technical background that you would get through training, but they don't need it at the moment. And a couple of them recently have been making feature films, being in touring shows.
Yeah, no, to add on to that, I was part of the LB Plus, like I said, and the reason that I didn't want to go straight into training was, one, I wanted to have that break from education. I wanted to go out and do a bit of practical work and just make sure that before I was going to spend an arm and a leg on education fees, that it was what I wanted to do. And then obviously coming to the LB, that gave me the initiative, and I have gone to training. I don't really want to do a 3-year BA course, but from working at LB, I've had, obviously, my workshop leader, I've been given a workshop leader now, an assistant, sorry. I've done lots of different projects where we've done this corporate work and things like that, just built up my credit. We had lots of people come in whilst we was doing the LB Plus course. Like say he gave us out free vouchers to go and do auditions at Central School. He gave us a workshop on our own, and he was just telling us about how to audition to drama school and things like that. So we had lots of, we wouldn't have got that for free anywhere else. That would have been like, a day's course we would have had to pay for. But obviously, without the bubble, we wouldn't all be paying for that. We wouldn't have had that extra bit of training. I did go for an audition, and but I didn't succeed. But to be honest with you, it was just the experience of knowing what I was going to be going in for if I would carry on and go to drama school. And like I say, I haven't been to drama school, but from being at LB, from learning just the basics of what I need to know to go out into the world, I've been taught so much from the LB Plus course. I've made so many contacts, currently got myself an agent, which I'm doing a course with. I've done a short film, I'm doing a short film for the BBC next week. The reason I've got that was because Marie passed on the details to me of people that get in contact with her for youth projects that they run. Also, I did a music video yesterday. Somebody who works at the Bubble got in contact with me, passed on my details, done a music video yesterday, and ended up pretty much starring in it. So that's going to build up your credits. So, you know, it's things like that. Without building up your credits, you don't get anywhere. You can't go onto websites and sign up and get auditions sent to you because you haven't got enough credits, so they don't class you as an actor. They say, oh, we're just trying it out, sort of thing. So we, you know, we're not going to stick you on the site. You need to be on their websites, you need to get regular auditions, you need people to keep in contact with you and you to do the same thing. And without building up your credits, you can't do that without being added onto their websites. And I definitely wouldn't have got half of the credits that I have now without being on the LB Plus because I didn't know where to go, where to start. There was nothing out there to tell me where do you start to become an actor without training. So I never had 3 years behind me, but without coming to LB Plus, I definitely would have had the credits and I wouldn't be standing in the position where I am now as an agent and hopefully on the rise. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the increase in fees is like definitely worrying, and you know, I mean, the arts can be definitely sort of a rocky ride as a career. So for the kind of debts to rise, that's quite frightening, really. But then saying that, you know, whilst I'm not saying that training isn't absolutely valuable for any artist, at the same time, it's not. I don't think it's essential actually. At Bubble when I was 16 or 17, I remember Trish, actually, Trish gave me a chance to support her doing a holiday project for some young people in Oxley's Woods. And I got paid. I was 16. And I got paid quite a lot of money actually. I think it was like £400 a week. Can you believe that? I mean, it was just amazing. And that was my first sort of credit, so to speak. And from there, I really loved working and running workshops, and that opportunity just grew and grew and grew and grew and grew. And I was given more and more opportunity to work at Bubble and work with other young people. I mean, I think at 17 or 18, I auditioned for a professional show called Gilgamesh, I remember. And Pepper very kindly accepted me to come for an audition. He very sweetly said afterwards, very good, go to drama school. So I did. And actually prior to that even, again through Bubble, I got an opportunity to audition for a feature film that was being made by BBC. And I got a featuring role in it, and that was my first sort of professional acting credit. Again, so not only did I kind of get an opportunity to become a workshop leader, facilitator, I also got an opportunity to become an actress, all through the same hub, central hub, which was very close to where I grew up, very close to my house. That always made me feel like I had a place and a chance to develop and grow. And that was indispensable to me as an artist. I mean, to the point I went to drama school, felt a bit at sea because it was very different to what I learned at Bubble. Very different. And spent some time working as an actress. And then about sort of 4 years after graduating, I kind of felt like I wasn't getting the satisfaction that I thought I would get. And it's largely because I was cultivated from about 13, from 96 at Bubble, I was cultivated as a theatre maker, as opposed to as an actor. And I don't think that drama school really reflected that part of the industry. And it just didn't seem to be even an option to leave a mainstream drama school, actor training, and become a theatre maker or an artist and have autonomy and think of a producer and a director and a writer all at once. So I had to come back and say, Pep hasn't told me. I don't think I was as articulate about what I am now about sort of what the issue was, but I sort of said, I need to do some workshops, I'm feeling a bit lost, and I did. And now I still act, but I definitely lean more towards my origins, which is as a community practitioner, as a theatre maker. I'm trying to find my way, but it's sort of a really weird roundabout journey. And now Peston, as he before me, says, the drama school messed you up. So, do we need it?
Joe? Well, I think I agree with that, do we need a question. But I think we just really have to take responsibility. Just thinking of a conversation I was having recently, you know, this kind of extended to now you're going to have to be in education until 17 and then 18. And how are we going to have, you know, this, the schools are all kind of thinking about it. And I was in a meeting about it and I said, could we not think about the whole community as being the educators? Because and all take mutual responsibility for this education. And so I do think it's particularly about going away somewhere else, although that can be an important experience for a young person. And I do sometimes think it would be vital for some of the young people I work with to have the experience of going away and being in a different environment would be life-changing in itself, doesn't matter what they study. But I think we've all got to take responsibility constantly about handing on information and giving space to the next generation. And that is not necessarily within our field going to be done through the formal routes.
My name is Joe. I'm about to graduate from East 15 acting in contemporary theatre. Also make a company with these guys called High Rise. Just to kind of jump off the back of what you guys are speaking about, I think it's incredibly important to have training. Coming from the background that I've come from, kind of struggling to even get my head around kind of any education or anything really, I think it's really a credit to myself and the group that I'm working with to have the acting knowledge as well as the knowledge to go out there and be able to just to create things and to do things. But one thing I would also say is that I had to call Marie as well and call Marie and say, I need help in terms of getting my authenticity back. Because being at acting school is a complete different world to what I was used to. Like I came from a background that's just predominantly black. We fight every day. You have to just get in and graft and survive. And then to go to acting school, you think you've seen the world because you know a lot of the emotional issues that people don't. And you're in a very higher class situation now. And you have to be able to articulate yourself in a way that you've never been able to before and deal with issues that you've never been able to. Was a great help to me to bring up my standard in the sense to swim in pools that I've never been able to swim in before. But at the same time, I had to come back and find people that work in a group like Bubble to kind of ground myself. So I think it's great to have both. I think you need to have both. You need to be able to say, I can do the best in my craft. And to also say, you know what, my heart is still pure. And I can turn around now and be like, you know, I want to speak about the London right stuff. And I'm not ashamed of saying it because everyone else around me doesn't come from that. I come from it, so I'm going to say it. I'm the only black person in my class at 28, but I don't care. I'm going to do it. And if you want to jump on board, they'll jump on board. But it's that confidence and that kind of zeal to kind of push out from both of these factors. So I think it's important to have the training, and it's also important to have the authenticity, to have groups that back you up, such as Bubble.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I do think that training is important. For me, I didn't want to do the 3-year training course, but I do training course like I paid 180 for an 8-week TV and screen course, and that taught me something completely invaluable. I mean, I was always theatre when I was in school, and to do TV, I realised how out of touch I was with training and how much I did need it. And I'm doing another one, which will be another 8-week course, and again, that's going to sort of take me into movie making. So it definitely is important to have training and to constantly be refreshed, because things always change in the arts world. You know, there's always new skills, you can always learn something more, but without training you can't do it. You do need to have that. But while I wasn't training, doing the TV and film, and I realised it was like I was seeing things with the industry, you was meeting people, and you was just seeing how everything mixed together. And like you said, you do need the grounding, so it was nice to come back to Bubble on a Saturday and then teach the 6 to 8 drama workshops and do corporate business work and go in and get business people up, jumping around, dancing and singing and whatnot. So it's nice to have that. Definitely good to have training. You do need to have training, don't get me wrong. But you do, like you say, you do need to level it out. You need to come back, you need to be doing theatre making, you need to be grounded by what the Bubble gives me anyway. So it's nice to have a level, and I'm sure that Jaleesa will say the same thing. She was somebody else who'd done the LB Plus course, and she's done training, she's done year courses, 8-week courses, same as Kevin. But we always manage to come back to the Bubble. We work here, we do, you know, it's not normal, but you know, you can feel really out of touch at drama schools and at courses, and being around them sort of people, it can make you feel a bit like, oh God. But then obviously coming back to training, and working at the bubble, it definitely levels it out for me. So and without that, obviously, I think I'd get quite down on myself because I don't think the drama school would have suited me. But I can't say that anymore. But yeah, you know, it's so, yeah, definitely need the equilibrium, like you said.
Yeah, as well as the kind of jump on that beast which is called education, especially when you feel like you've come from a place where you're not good at it. Like I was not good. GCSE is awful. I only scraped through A-levels because someone helped me to get into it, and I saw a hope in drama, did a B-Tech and just took an opportunity. So it's nice to be now in acting school with people that come from Holland and their dads are like Oilers and and I can sit in the same class as them, the same room as them, and kind of be like, you know what, I'm not afraid to do that anymore. You know what I mean? Like I've actually tamed this piece, which is education, which kind of sat as a big sore on my back for ages, which is lovely.
See, I was always straight A's though, this is the thing, I was always straight A student, I always done really well when you know, everything went into school, my parents always pushed me to do really well at school, and I did, and then by the time I came to the end of it and then applying for drama school, I was like, no, I've had enough. I've got everything into school, GCSEs and A-levels, I've had enough, I want to get out and practice. That's where they were me, because they're the only ones that was going to offer me the training and the ignition to get started on practicing drama rather than writing about it.
It does seem to be something that you're all talking about, which is something about academic subjects or almost drama school training not being as alive to the needs of the industry or young people, perhaps as much as courses like LB+, really, because it seems to make someone who's whole and someone who can explore those industry opportunities, but as well as learning other skills and young people coming out with skills rather than being kind of overqualified and under-skilled.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Sonia, ex-bubbler and now freelance arts practitioner. I'm wondering whether it kind of has to be an either or, and maybe the companies such as Bubble and Immediate Theatre can really, what they're talking about is a kind of something that can be a vocational training, something that becomes a little bit more structured, doesn't take the heart out of it, which is really important, but also becomes accredited. So, because different people do learn in different ways, different people got different, opportunities and backgrounds and all that kinds of things, and it just feels like maybe there's something here about those companies, but taking that one in a more structured way, and that they can train in that way on the job, as used to happen many, many years ago in other types of work.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm Gareth White from Central School of Speech and Drama, so I feel I want to chip in. Not to defend the drama school sector, but to say actually that we need organisations like this to push people towards the schools, not just and the universities as well as the drama schools. And I completely get it, it's not going to be for everyone, and I completely get the challenges if you haven't got the finance behind you and the intimidation of this £9,000 fees and taking out your first mortgage effectively to get your education. But certainly at Central, and I think elsewhere, we're very alive to the image that an elite institution has and how unwelcoming it can appear for people coming in from different backgrounds, from people who don't have those expectations and come to a place and they see perhaps, yes, a black applicant will come and see what looks like an entirely white institution. But if you scratch the surface, you see it's not that. But we're working on that. But the really important thing is that people, organisations like this, need to give people the confidence and push people towards this. Because the way that changes is by us having more people that we can bring in. And that's what we're after.
So we want to back on that? Great, okay.
Yeah, sorry, sorry, my name is Dominic, I work with Joe from High Rise, and I go to East 15 as well with Joe, and I think that definitely it goes from, we need to have opportunities where, from the community into the more, polished drama and really learning a massive wide range of skills from hundreds and hundreds of years. That's something that I have found absolutely priceless, learning at drama school. But I also think that there's something that can work the other way as well, which is once people are, whilst they're training and once they're about to graduate And if the drama schools can start to actually help direct people in the way back down to these community centres, down, it's not down, but that's what kind of it seems, but it's going back, do you know what I mean, back down to the core, from also maybe people that haven't actually ever been to the core before and felt that community work themselves, because I know that it would be absolutely priceless sometimes to have someone who is from a completely different, possibly sheltered background where they haven't seen this before. That opinion and that value can also really feed into work that's being done at ground-based level. And I feel like that's what can start making community theatre a lot more appealing to those higher statuses as well, because it's really, really rich work where people have trained and have learnt about, you know, so many different bits of history of theatre and theatre making. So I think that would be something that I would have been really interested in coming from. I started at Chicken Shed and worked at Chicken Shed for about 5 years, and that, you know, and then went to drama school, and it was just completely different, as you said before, completely different vibe. But to then be able to feed back, I feel, is just priceless. It is priceless. So definitely, it's two things. It's, you know, being able to have, you know, companies like Bubble be able to actually have credited courses themselves, and then also being able to have actors and practitioners pointed in the direction of these community-driven companies. So it works two ways, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's really interesting.
Our best relationship with any drama school is the day when the LB Plus forum piece goes to Central and or wherever it might go, to any of those drama schools, and the young people on that course go into that environment as the experts and run a forum piece for MA students, for BA students, and they go into that environment with that status. You know, they go in as the experts running the piece. They're the ones who have got the agency, they're the ones who are making the theatre, and they're going in, and for me, getting them across that door to have a look at this environment, to make a choice for themselves. Is this an environment that might be interesting to me? Is what's really important. I just want to come back a little bit to young people making theatre with young people and why that's so important. Because I don't want to kind of close down the discussion on training and the cost of training, but I'm really interested in, you know, for us, we get young people to make theatre with other young people because something special happens in the room. And I just wondered if there's anything to say about that.
Marie, what would you?
Is there a question or just answer?
Yeah, what's the special thing? So I see something extraordinary happen
Yeah.
in those relationships.
Yeah, and I think what's really special about, especially in LB Plus, is that you get such a range of experience within those young people. So some that have been in every school play since they were 5 and love doing drama and love acting, and some that just come along because I've happened to have met them in a community council meeting or something, and they haven't got anything better to do, so they might come and get the free lunch and see how they like it. And sometimes they're the ones that stay the longest. And seeing someone's, seeing somebody kind of fall in love with theatre, or try it for the first time, or go see a show for the first time, and work with someone who's their own age and from around the corner, and be influenced by what it is they enjoy about theatre, or what it is they're discovering about theatre. I think that's really special. Yeah, Jade.
June, I'm on the board, and I'm freelancing at the Mountains School. It's in the previous discussion we were talking about the value of story, and that being absolutely essential to drama. And surely one of the big things about peer-to-peer is the relevance of the stories that are shared, and the recognition of those stories both ways.
Yeah. So when we saw the authenticity of what LB Plus present, emotionally, contextually, and seeing the young people in school or in a youth club respond to that in the audience, and kind of sit there in a room they used to be in with people they used to be with, but see something that they didn't imagine they might be able to connect with, and then see them really connect with it, and then to kind of open up and be able to explore these issues and have a voice. That's why we do it. That's why we do the peer-to-peer stuff, because it really does open up that avenue of discussion.
It's like, that's like when we went to the centre where there was all young offenders. They'd all just been, but they was in that, what I can't remember what it was called.
In the group.
Is that one?
Yeah.
We went there, all of us young lot. It was a very random group. We didn't think we was going to get much out of them. We thought we was really quite intimidated, to be honest with you. I think the adults more so than the youngsters were. And it was amazing what we got out of the end. Like we just us working with them, we showed them a bit of forum. It was about a young girl who was with a guy who was controlling her, he was not letting her go to her prom, he weren't letting her out with their friends, she didn't realise it, we got them involved, how would you change it? They weren't, it was quite reluctant at first, but by the end of the session, they stuck together their own forum pieces in 3 groups. They was all bang on, spot amazing. Out of nowhere, everyone became an actor. From people sitting over in the corner like, no, 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 and then by the end of it, they was the ones who was turning around and saying, you come back next week, you come back next week. And that's what happened at 9 out of 10 of all of our, well, 10 out of 10 of all of them, Surrey College, every class we went to, because we was the only, and Marie and everybody stepped back. They wasn't even, by the end of introducing and getting the icebreakers going, we was the ones leading them, we was the ones telling them what we're going to do, we was the ones explaining what's what. They was asking us questions just as much as we was asking them questions, and by working together, it was like you said, classroom drama class again, in like GCSE sort of level, and they was just getting so involved. And you know, for you to go in there and be intimidated and think, great, like they're youth offenders, they're gonna like you're not gonna participate, and then they, at the end of it, they was like, you come back next week, you come back next week, and they was so forceful. And we did end up doing some more work with them, and then the young people from there came to, I think they came to Steps and done something, didn't they? I don't know if they come in the end, yeah. But they ended up, you know, enjoying drama rather than being like, oh, great drama. And they come along and they've wanted to get involved, and the schools wanted to get involved in more drama activities, because the youth leading it connected with the youth receiving it, and it just worked so well. And you don't need no adults in the class. That was it. Like, the adults left, they locked all the doors, they left us in and said, no other choice but to get involved. And by the end of it, they was like, oh, come back next week. So yeah, definitely with youth working with youth, I think that's not the only way to do it, but I think that's definitely one of the best ways to do it.
But how was it for you as a young person working with young people and being that facilitator?
I did feel a little bit patronising sometimes when you're like, okay guys, let's you know, bring it back. I did feel a bit patronising, especially if there was someone that was older than me and I was telling them what to do. It was like, all right, love, sort of thing, yeah. But yeah, to work with them, I literally treated it like how we was introduced to the guys who was working within the bubble, because we was working with each other at the end of it. So that was our first, you know, youth working with youth, that was the first experience. In taking it out there, and we made sure that we catered it to young people, what would we want to do, how would we go about doing it, and why, what difficulties may they find. And that's why when we structured the workshops, we always made sure it was, okay, can we do it with each other? Is it hard to do it with somebody new? How can we break the ice? It was difficult to try and think about it, but when you got in there, and because they accepted you because you were a young person as well, rather than an adult or a teacher going in and telling them what to do, we worked together with them, and that was what the training taught us, to work with them rather than to direct them and tell them what to do. They was the ones coming up with the ideas. We was just giving them the little seed. Do you know what I mean? We was the ones planting the seed. They was the ones going, oh, how about we do this? Or how about our ones about this? They was the ones saying about politics and stuff like that, and they were just going off in their own little worlds, and that's when we had to rein it in and go, quit in peace, and fear. That was it, and they've done it, because with us not explaining it to them like bit by bit, but just saying it in our way, do you know what I mean? A young way, by saying it to them in the way that we can explain it and for them to understand it. It was like, oh, I get what you mean, and then they go off and they do it, and then they come back and go, what about this, and this, and you go for it, sort of thing, yeah. So we just planted the seed. We could only do that because we were younger people, because we understood where they was coming from, so the answers to the questions were, you know, catered for them. Yeah, Jo.
Yeah, I do think it's important about the story, and one of the things I feel everyone needs to have their story told and to be able to share their story, and I think that's one of the things I see happening in the peer-to-peer work, is that actually, young people, and we work a lot in crews, they're so used to some expert or some teacher, some removed person who's got the information, and suddenly they're presented with people who are not that different from them being the experts, which means they can be the experts too. So I do, and often the work we make with young people, we're saying, well, you're the expert, we want to explore this subject, so you're the experts, and I think that's very important. You really see that flourish with peer-to-peer work, that happens much more easily if it's peer-led. I also just wanted to, because I have seen it happen so many times with young people who've had a lot of struggles in their lives, and they're then put in a position of leadership over a group, and they have this kind of wonderful kind of light bulb moment of realising, of learning to control their own, learning to reflect on their own lives because they're teaching it. And actually, I said, I don't think I know anything until I have to teach it. And I see that happening for 15-year-olds. And so that's what I think is partly the power of peer-to-peer work, is somebody in the first group said, oh, I did this project, I learned more, it was about my learning, not theirs. And I think that's part of it, is that doing that is putting everybody in a learning environment.
Yeah, and it picks up on that. I just wanted to... Oh, my name's Ben. I work with the teams at the moment in football, the 16th and 19th, as an apprentice since I just wanted to comment on what you said at the beginning, Joe, about this idea of 14-year-olds teaching something to 11-year-olds or being a role model to 11-year-olds. I really like that idea, I've never seen it happen in schools. I've never seen it in my personal experience happen. I think that year 9, 14, 13 is such a difficult year for teenagers. There's so much, it's so confusing, and there seems to be so little guidance and no opportunities really for leadership at that age. So to sort of, the concept of teenagers of that age communicating with people and the knowledge that they've gained through those first years of high school being and through their just comparative adulthood to younger people, I think that's really inspiring. I'd really like to see that sort of treatment of that age group move a little bit more in that direction.
Joel, sorry, did you have your hand up?
No, it's already said. It's already been said.
Right.
Emma Lamond, and used to with school undertaking my first year of A-levels. I think young people working with young people was incredibly important. At my school before Christmas, I directed the Year 9s in The Tempest for the school Shakespeare Schools project, and one girl really stood out for me because when she started, she was on report, and the teacher who was overshowing it said, look, we can't cast her, she hasn't got the academic, she can't keep up with it, she's a bad student, and me and the other two sixth formers who were directing were adamant that we had her because she was incredible. A couple of weeks back, she came running up to me in the corridor saying, guess what, I'm off report, I'm achieving all my grades. It's because she was missing rehearsals during the rehearsal time because she was on detention. And we kind of made it very clear to her that if she didn't pull her act together, she was going to have to be out because there was no way we could explain it away to the teachers. So many times going, please let her off detention. I'll do the detention later. Please let her off. But she then began to realise that she was letting the cast and the team down, and that had more impact on her than any of the teachers saying, stop doing this, stop doing that, you're not allowed to go on a school trip, because she was taking away not only from her own, what she was gaining from it, but what everyone else was gaining from it. And also, I run the Year 7 drama club at my school, and one thing that I'm really proud of is when you're in Year 7, you join up to every single club that's going at our school, because there's so much on. You're like, yes, all of it. But what really is impressive to me is we haven't had anyone drop out, and we started back in September, with the exception of one girl who then came back a few weeks ago because we realised she realised we were doing James the Giant Peach. But that's grown in numbers. But also there was one girl who she didn't make a lot of contribution to the session. She was very quiet, and we made them do a showcase at Christmas to raise money for charity and also to show everyone that it's worth us doing this, because the teacher didn't say no, you can't do it anymore. And we made her work on this poem, and every time she spoke incredibly quickly and incredibly quietly. But we worked with her, but also we made each other, all the Year 7s work with each other to give feedback on their performances. And when it came to the showcase, her performance was one of the best there. And it's because she had guidance from people who weren't teachers but were higher up in the school, so I'm in Year 12. And also from people who she wouldn't speak to in a class situation because she was the weird kid, which I felt really sorry for her, but she didn't have many friends. But at drama club, she did. And they wanted her to do well because it reflected well on them. And that's not the kind of thing you get in lessons, I don't think. It's very competitive in my school in lessons. And so I think it's really important to have clubs like this, so where we can help to develop each other in a non-competitive way.
I'm Danny Bradham, and I was a workshop leader at the Bubble in the 80s with Tony Gallacher. We ran the youth theatre together. I'm now something called a lecturer in applied theatre, part-time at Goldsmiths. And I only just started doing it. But one of the things I started to find out about is that people are trying to make the most somewhere like Goldsmiths, and it's probably true of other universities, of the very difficult and disastrous situation around fees. So there would be kind of some embracing of young people who wanted to come and engage with the idea of going to do a theatre degree at university. One of the things Goldsmiths has done, which I thought was sort of making the best of a bad job, really, was to charge the full fees, but to top slice a heavy kind of access fund out of that, which produces some scholarships, produces some bursaries, pays for travel and equipment and those kinds of things. And people need to know about it, and I hope I will broadcast it. And I want to sort of pick up Adam's thing and say, bring those young people into Goldsmiths and we'll have you. And I'd love to teach our students, so let's do that soon.
I was just going to say that, when I was saying about the whole drama school thing, I was being a bit facetious. I mean, of course, it was indispensable to me as an experience, and I wouldn't go back. It would have just been good to maybe have a taster first, know what it was going to be like, so I could have chosen something different maybe. But hey, you can't try to free buy a drama, so you've got to get in there. But the other thing is that with the fees, I think if you're a griot, if you're a storyteller, if you're a performer, you can't cost that. You can go and do something different if you're scared. You'll be miserable. You have to just go and do what your soul needs. If that's what you are, that's what you are. And there's a reason for us in this world, and we are indispensable in our own weird and wacky way. And we just have to sort of put our money where our love is, and take the risk and live the life and be happy with it. Because that's what I really think.
Oh, sorry. Just this lady at the front and then I'll go back. Sorry. Yeah, I'm Fiona Whitelaw. I'm a freelance actor, writer and facilitator. And I can say massive things, and I have a massive respect for everybody who's contributed. But I just want to challenge our use of the term need. I know that we have to use this on funding forms, but please God, will we, or Allah, or whoever you believe, please will we not say it? Because these are people, and I am so passionate about every young person in our country and in our world and in our city, and I believe that they are our young people, and I can't bear anyone treated as other, and I feel that term is insulting and degrading. And
we have so many conversations about what we're going to say instead, and what do we say? People all the time, people who we try and make it positive, and it's a conversation that we've had with young people, lots and lots, and it's something we never get to a conclusive.
It used to be yachts when I was younger. Those of you who are old enough to remember.
We try and say teenagers with time during the day.
Fact.
That's why I'm not on funding form.
I know that we need to use it on funding form. I'm not disputing that. I just don't want us to use it.
Yeah. And we've got time. Let's just take one or two other things. Yeah, this lady at the back, and the lady next door to you as well. Who I
last two.
Yeah, last two.
I'm Judy Ward, and I'm on the board of National Drama, and I feel really privileged lucky to be here today. We have an executive board meeting, and it's really what we're listening to is really important for the things that we're talking about. But I work with an arts cooperative that's based in the North Pennines in rural County Durham, and I don't want you to forget that there is practice outside of London that is doing exactly this kind of work. And the most important thing is about being prepared to give up power and to share resources. Because the companies that are doing that are the companies that are still producing this kind of work. And they're here in Southwark, but they're also up in Scotland, they're in Durham, they're in other parts of the world. And even more now than ever before, those people need to come together to make a stand and to make a difference. Because all the things that you're talking about are all the things that I've been doing, not for 40 years, but for 27 years up in Durham. You know, and it's because we've always listened to young people. So whatever they have said, they want to run the youth theatre, they want leadership opportunities, they want to make a living out of this, they want some support in finding routes, the next routes, whatever they are. As adults, we've always been prepared to listen to that, and it is often challenging for us. And I think I've been able to do it because I've always remembered what other adults did for me, and I've remembered my own childhood, my own growing up, and what it is that changed for me when I was a teenager and failing everything. So, you know, please, it's just to say, remember the other companies, the other people, the other young people who also are in challenging circumstances, and it's not necessarily about inner city urban, it's about rural and no transport and, you know, equally no money, no employment, no prospects, okay? We need to work together.
Thank you. And finally, this lady here.
Just a quick thing, really. My name's Hanging Up. Used to run a theatre company, but I'm about to start drama teaching practice in September. Just an observation, really. Is the experience of making people feel empowered through drama very different if you're working with a group of young people that don't want to be in that workshop? Really?
Yeah.
So, for example, they're not a free agent, they haven't chosen to be there, but they've been told they have to for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Isn't the experience very different? And how do we engage those young people?
We found that trouble with the unoffending team that we went to. They was told, someone's coming in to do a drum with you, put your name down if you want to do it. Half of them put their name down because they thought they was going to sit there and do Jack. So we went in there, and it was really challenging because they was rowdy as it was, maybe, you know, their manners weren't up to scratch sort of thing, so it was quite challenging. Not saying that, you know, that they were screaming and shouting at us, but they were really reluctant to get involved. And there was this one girl throughout pretty much 3 hours of the 4, sat in the corner, refused to even talk to us, refused to get involved. And by the end of it, she was the one, she wasn't doing a hell of a lot, but she was still involved, she still said dialogue, she was still getting involved again. It was quite challenging. I would say that it is probably an idea to get a youth team together to maybe assist you in either getting the workshop written down or just get some ideas from it. If you can't get them involved, it may be a good idea to try and get maybe 1 or 2 people involved so that they can sort of, you know, once you've stuck something together for them to do, to walk around and help that. But yeah, I can understand it was quite difficult to get them involved. I don't know how to maybe to suggest getting them involved. We've just done some sort of icebreakers. We did have to do a lot of you know, come back in and everything like that. But by the end of it, I mean, by showing them a piece of theatre that they enjoyed, that was relevant to them, that they could emotionally connect with, was definitely a good way of getting them, oh, okay, drama isn't too bad. You know, they were all like, drama, no one, I'm not going to sit here and be all la-di-da. They just presumed it was all classical theatre and stuff like that. And by doing something with Forum where they could see what was going on, they could connect with it, and they got the opportunity to change it at the end, they was like, well, I wouldn't do that, I'll get involved, I'll do this, that and the other. And that's when their opinions started to click, that's when they wanted to get involved, and that's when they changed it.
And they had to be there wasn't an option, I was told, they had to go to this workshop, and it's no, you're going to be there actually.
No, they're not locked in the room. They're not locked in the room. And on that note, I'm sorry, but we've run over.